All right, and now what we're going to do today, and then we're in Geometry Unit 3, Lesson 4, and this is on page 125, and this is really a quick lesson because what we're going to do, all right, is really go through and just use some of those angle relationships that we've already talked about and actually identify those and find angle measures based on those. Now, as you can see, we have this wonderful geometric shape here on page 125 that has all types of angles and markings and different things here. And so you're going to use this picture, all right, to do some work. So now if we flip the page to page 126, what I'm going to do is just go through a handful of these with you just so you get the idea, make sure you understand kind of what you want to do. All right, so on station 1 here, all right, I'm just going to do the first 3 here with you. All right, identify the type of special angle pair below. If the angles do not have a special relationship, write none. All right, and so you're going to have to kind of flip back and forth here, or this is where you might want to open the PDF, right, in front of you, have that on your screen. That way you can reference these and have the picture up and you don't have to flip back and forth like I'm about to now. So I'm going to flip back over and look at PDA and GDB. Now, once again, remember that when we look at this, all right, PDA, that means the vertex has to be in the middle. So I'm going to go PDA, so that would be this angle right here, and GDB, so GDB right here. All right, so I'm talking about these two angles, all right, and hopefully you remember that those are vertical angles, all right, so that is, all right, those are vertical angles. Now remember, we're identifying the type. That's not the relationship, right? So we want you to identify what type it is, and then down here you'll use the relationship to actually find those angle measures, okay? All right, let's look at number 2 here. So ADB. So when I look here, I have ADB right here, ADB right there, and then I have GDB. So GDB right here, all right? So ADB and GDB. So these two angles right here, all right? And there's actually 2 ways to describe these 2 angles, all right, when you look at these 2, all right? Let me move this up here so you guys couldn't see my B there. Sorry when I flipped over. So GDB is here, and then ADB is here, all right? And so one way we could label those, all right, is that those are definitely supplementary, right? Those are supplementary angles, but you could also say they're a linear pair. And those would both be correct relationships, right, or names of those types of angles, all right? Okay, let's do one more together. So PAD and DAB here. So PAD, so let's go find PAD. So PAD right here, PAD, all right, and then DAB, and then DAB right here. So PAD, all right, and DAB right here. Now, if you notice, those 2 angles make up this mark right here, right? And remember, that is our 90-degree mark. So that means that those 2 angles are complementary. All right, so complementary would be the types of angles there. All right, so that's really what it wants you to do. All right, and once again, they may not have a special relationship, and you can write none. All right, now, let's take this and translate some of those angle relationships to finding angle measures. So I'm going to find the first 3 here with you. So let's go back to PAD here on our other side. All right, so PAD would be this angle right here. All right, right here. All right, so PAD. All right, so when we look at PAD, all right, there's a lot of things happening here. So we have to look at, all right, these angle marks, right? So everything with these angle marks are the same, right? So I've got to look like, oh, these 2 angles are the same. So PAQ, we have PAD here. We have way down here at the bottom, if I move that up, we have ECB that has 2 angle marks. We also have this angle over here that has 2 angle marks. All right, so all those angles that have those same marks, remember, are the same. Now, and that's important because notice I don't really have enough information over here to find the angle measure for PAD. But if I come over here, once again, we see this 90-degree angle symbol here, which means if this is 40, that means this angle has to be 50. They have to add up to be 90 degrees. And now every angle with this double arc mark here has to also be 50 degrees. So that means that this has to be 50 degrees, this has to be 50 degrees. So everywhere we see that, all right, we will find that that's a 50-degree angle. So that's kind of how you're going to have to work with this, that it may not be the angle measure may not be evident, all right away. So you may have to kind of go looking for some other information in this picture to find that measure. But now we know that measure of PAD is in fact 50 degrees. All right. So now let's look at GDE. All right. GDE. Oh, that's got to be a typo there. GDE. I'm assuming that's probably going to be GDB here. So let's go ahead and do that as GDB. All right, because GDE doesn't make sense, right? So I'm assuming that's a typo. All right, now, once again, if we look at GDB here, we know that it's a vertical angle, all right, with PDA from what we said above, and we know that's 120 degrees. So this would be 120 degrees, which also means every other angle with these three arc marks will also be 120 degrees. All right, so that's got to be a B there, so let's just adjust that. And we said that's 120 degrees. All right, and now BDA. BDA. Let's find BDA here. BDA right here. BDA. Now, once again, right, we know that these two angles have to be supplementary. So if this is 120, that means that this angle has to be 60 degrees because we know they have to add up to be 180 degrees. All right, so BDA, all right, is 60 degrees. And then that's what you're going to do as you go through and fill out the rest of those angle measures. All right, now let's look at angle 1 here together, or excuse me, let's look at number 1 here in station 3. All right, now what we also have to do sometimes is write an equation based on the information what we know. Okay, all right, so measure of angle 1 is this, the measure of angle 2 is this. What is the value of x? What is the measure what is the measure of measure angle 1? Of angle 1, that's kind of a double, we don't need that right there. What is the measure of angle 1? Start by writing an equation representing their relationship. So now we got to go find angle 1 and angle 2. All right, so here's angle 1, all right, and here's angle 2. So angle 2 is this angle right here. All right. So now, once again, sometimes you're going to have to extract that information from the picture and keep going. So what we know is that this is 90 degrees right here, which means that everything else, so this from here to here also has to be 90 degrees, right? Because we know that the sum of a straight angle is 180 degrees. No matter how many angles we have, it has to still add up to be 180 degrees. So if this is 90, that means angle 1 and angle 2 have to add to be 90 degrees. That means angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. So what we have to do is then use that relationship, all right, as a starter for our equation. So now if I flip back over, we know the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is equal to 90 degrees. All right, so sometimes we have to go back and use what we know from our pictures and we can write an equation and set up that relationship. And now what that allows us to do is we know that angle 1 is 3x minus 10. So I can put that in for angle 1 right here. So 3x plus 10 plus, and we know angle 2, all right, is 2x, and that's equal to 90 degrees. And then what you see here is this really forms what we've been doing and what you did a ton in Algebra 1 is just solving simple equations, right? So now if I look, 3x plus 2x would be 5x, and then I have minus 10 equals 90 degrees. And then we can go through and solve, all right, for our equation here. All right, so we know that that means that 5x has to equal to 100. All right, and then that means that if I divide both sides by 5, x has to equal to 20 degrees. So notice this is what is the value of x? So we know x is 20. Now what it says here is what is the measure of angle 1? So once we know what x is, we want to go back and then plug it in, and we can find, all right, the measure of angle 1. So the measure of angle 1 would be 3 times 20 minus 10. So the measure of angle 1 would be 60 minus 10, and the measure of angle 1 is equal to 50. And then notice we can do the same thing for angle 2. Even though it doesn't ask for this, is the way we should check our work, right? So this would be 2 times 20, and so the measure of angle 2 is 40 degrees. Now notice we said angle 1 plus angle 2 should equal to 90 degrees. And when we look at our result at the end, that is true. So even though it may not always ask for this part, what is the measure of angle 1 or the measure of angle 2, it's always good practice to take your x values and go back and plug it in and make sure that initial relationship, whatever you started with, holds true. All right, so that's all for this lesson. So, all right, finish station 1, finish station 2, and do our final problem there, and I will see you next time.